Welcome to the Fitness Professional Online Radio Show, where you get access to fitness industry news, tips, and insights from professionals around the world. Visit us at fitnessprofessionalonline.com. And now your host, Doug Holt.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of Fitness Professional Online Radio Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, and today we have a great guest for you, and this interview went a little bit longer than some of our typical ones, so I want to jump right into it. The interview is with Amanda Harris, who's an exercise physiologist and medical exercise specialist with over 15 years of experience in the health, fitness, and wellness industries as a personal trainer, group instructor, fitness manager, and fitness industry educator. Amanda has presented at Club Industry, IRSA, Athletic Business Conference, and MFA, among others. Her articles have been published in Fitness Business News, Club Industry Magazine, ACSM's Health Fitness Journal, Norm Cates' Club Industry Insider, and she's been interviewed for our very own FitnessProfessionalOnline.com. She is currently the Director of Personal Training and Medical Fitness at ACAC in Middleton, Virginia, where she runs a busy medical fitness practice and serves as the Vice President of the newly formed American Society of Fitness Professionals. So without further ado, let's get into the call with Amanda. Hi, Amanda. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking your time to be with us, so thanks for being here.
My pleasure, Doug.
Tell us kind of a little bit about your path in the fitness industry and how you got where you are today.
Well, I guess I started out teaching aerobics because it really was aerobics back then when I was in college, and wound up kind of running the aerobics program for my college. And the more I got into it and, with certification, got interested in the mechanics of exercise and exercise physiology itself, it sort of turned out to be a career path for me. I wound up pursuing graduate school in exercise physiology, so I got my master's from the University of Virginia in '96 in exercise phys, and then kind of did a little bit of a circuitous route where I thought I might want to work in cardiac rehab, and unfortunately, the market was flooded when I got out of my graduate degree, and I wound up coming back to commercial fitness after a short stint in research, because research was interesting. We did cardiac research. I did cardiac research through the University of Virginia heart program, but it wasn't very satisfying because, in research you only see people for a few days of follow-up. So I really wanted to be able to help people make lifelong changes and at least follow them for a few months, better than a few days. So I wound up in commercial fitness and personal training actually at ACAC where I am now, and that was a good 12 years ago. And through that, kind of wound up in the post-rehab or medical fitness track. That was just kind of what I gravitated to because I really love problem solving and figuring out ways to make people feel better, and just very, very fulfilling as a field. And at the time, I didn't know of anybody who was doing it. But, fast forward 12 years and it's become a real sensation. I think it's probably the future of our industry to start to blend fitness with post-rehabilitative techniques and that sort of thing. So, but in the middle of all that, I guess I kind of found myself in management, and I just kept thinking I could build a better mousetrap, and ACAC promoted me into some leadership positions, personal training director, fitness director, and then ultimately vice president of fitness and wellness for the whole company. So we had 4 clubs that I was overseeing all the fitness and wellness operations in for a while. But I'll tell you, Doug, it was great. It was a fun ride. It was a great climb to the top. And then I realized that I wasn't doing fitness anymore. I was managing and running spreadsheets, and I was on the road a lot, and I had a lot of fun in there where I was mentoring directors and working with some of the frontline teams, which I really enjoyed, teaching young trainers how to be better professionals, and I got a kick out of that. But in the same vein, I was no longer touching people. I didn't have clients. I didn't have folks that I was really getting all that hands-on, fulfilling good stuff out of. And so about 3 years ago, I decided I wanted to get back into medical fitness as a practitioner, and so I kind of made a full circle and handed off some of my managerial responsibilities. So now I'm just running the personal training department out of one of ACAC's clubs in the Richmond area and running the medical fitness department there too. But more importantly, I see, 25, 30 people a week in my own practice of medical fitness out of ACAC, and that's where I get the majority of my life satisfaction and just really fulfillment is in that hands-on experience. So kind of a big circle, if you will.
Hey, every good story is, right?
Yeah, it can be.
It sounds a lot like Michael. I don't know if you've ever read Michael Gerbert's book, The E-Myth. It sounds like a very similar path where someone builds in, as he describes it, as a technician, but all of a sudden you find yourself doing bookkeeping and administrative work more than doing what you actually loved, and coming full circle into getting back into the reason you got into the industry or the passion you had behind it. It sounds like you found your way back. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, being not only in the trenches but also kind of an overseer, so to speak, where do you see medical fitness going in our industry?
I just feel like it's a huge part of the future of fitness. I mean, we'll always have the market for the folks who are probably like you and me. You know, we'd exercise in a closet on a treadmill if we had to. We don't need, you know, a lot of fancy clubs or fancy, you know, gadgets that tell us how to exercise. We're going to do it no matter what. So there's always going to be that market for the folks who are fit that want to get more fit, right, the boot camps and all of that. But I think the medical fitness market is just going to explode. I mean, it already has begun to explode. I mean, the baby boomers are flooding that market right now, and I think a lot of fitness professionals are finding themselves really unprepared to meet the needs of those folks, and so I can only see that market being an expanding one. I mean, it keeps me terribly busy, and I've told a few people this summer, especially new trainers that have come on into our organization, you know, while some of the mainstream folks that are running boot camps have really struggled through the summer months because their clients are going on vacation constantly, I mean, I've had steady business because really and truly, there's such a big demand for that medical fitness, for the health of all these different little comorbidities, you know, everything from arthritis to post-joint replacement. There are just so many people that have those needs, and they can keep you busy year-round. You know, it's no longer a seasonal luxury item. So I can't help but think that it's going to continue to take a real front role in the fitness industry going forward.
I agree with you more, and I think you touched on it. These people need to do this rather than just want to do it. It's not a matter of just looking good at the feet.
And they're highly motivated.
Yep.
Yeah, and they're highly motivated to do it. You know, they don't want to miss.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this has been a debate in the industry. You know, I worked for a certification company back in 2000, and this was a question that people were doing it kind of a gray area. But insurance companies, do you see them stepping into a more of a role of accepting a personal trainer's responsibility into that pre and post rehab environment?
You know, I'm not really sure. I think the pre and post rehab could go a couple of different ways. I will tell you, after speaking to some physician friends and physical therapists, that I have no desire to take insurance reimbursement. I mean, if you've talked to any of these providers, they will tell you the reimbursement itself is paltry at best. And I think especially with some of the new healthcare legislation, it's only getting worse. And so physicians are finding themselves having to take more and more patients on, and they're running themselves ragged. You know, they're not able to have the quality of life they once were able to have. I mean, you know, I think they sometimes get sort of blown out of proportion with extravagant lifestyles, but really right now a lot of physicians are being pushed to the brink of exhaustion just because they have to try to pay their, you know, say their malpractice insurance, their student loans back, all of that. So they wind up working, you know, 50, 60 hours a week just trying to make ends meet, whereas it used to be they could have like a little bit more normal life. But I think to answer your question about whether insurance will start to reimburse fitness professionals, aside from whether or not we want them to, I think that in large part we're going to always be categorized as a preventative measure. And I had this one conversation recently with a physician that I thought this was just a really brilliant perspective. And in his question to the audience, because the audience he was doing a presentation, and there was somebody in the audience that said, why wouldn't an insurance company reimburse for fitness services if it's preventative medicine? And his answer was, well, do you really expect your auto insurance company to pay for your oil changes and your tire rotations? And I thought, wow, that's a really good perspective, you know, and I think he's absolutely dead on there. If we're really thinking about fitness as preventative or even as maintenance, you know, for health and wellness, you don't expect your auto insurance to pay for the preventative and maintenance on your car. You expect your auto insurance to pay for helping you out when it's broken. And I think if we look at insurance that way, like insurance is meant to help you pay for what is broken, then it kind of gives you a little bit of a different perspective. But, will they ultimately start to cover some of our services? It's possible. I just don't know that we really want them to. So.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I own a facility. We have a sports medicine doctor here, and he's always trying to switch to cash-only patients because it's such a hassle for him to deal with.
Yeah, it's hard.
Really hard.
It's really hard.
A lot of our listeners, based on the feedback that we've gotten via email and our hotline, are usually in the industry 5 or less years. So, you having a lot more experience and kind of been there, done that. First of all, can you walk us through, and I know there's never a typical day, but give me a kind of a typical day, if there is one, of kind of what your day looks like and what are you doing during the day?
Well,
I knew that was coming. 6 million things, and it's always changing.
Yeah, it can be a pretty busy day. So usually I get in just in time to kind of pull my notes together on my first several clients, and I usually jump into it full bore. I know a lot of people will look at email first, but I'll be honest, I really need my mind to be on my clients first thing, and so I tend to look at email only at like a lunch break, and then I'll also look at it after I get home at night. Unfortunately for my poor husband, he often asks me why I have to get back on the computer. But it's literally because I don't want to get sucked into the vortex of email during the day. So I really spend most of my day with my clients. So I'll come in, I will see my first several clients. I try to schedule some little teeny breaks in there in between so I can get a breather and grab some water or a little bit of food. But I'll probably see clients right up until lunchtime. I might get pulled into a meeting around lunchtime that's, some sort of a management type meeting, and I'll stay in that meeting for an hour, hour and a half. And then I see afternoon clients, and then generally I pack up my bags and I go home and I do my programming at night and I do my email at night. So in between, I guess you could say, is when a lot of my team comes to me with their concerns or problems. And fortunately, I've tried to really instill a lot of independence in them, and that's something that I think ACAC as an organization is really good about, is empowering their frontline team. So really there's not a whole lot of, them coming to me with problems. They have creative solutions that they can usually use on their own. So there is some team time in there, but it's kind of scattered. Most of my day is spent with my clients or in a meeting or two. So that's about it.
It sounds like you guys put a lot of emphasis, at least at your position, on not only teamwork but also leadership. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And it's kind of seems like it's a buzzword. A lot of the, the big conferences or even the books that are coming out in business in general, it's all about leadership and this kind of change, at least it seems to me, on leadership rather than being from more of a dictatorship standpoint to being more of, why are we doing this and explaining, and I guess a little bit more compassion in that. Do you find that that works well for you and your team and your staff?
I do. I kind of see myself as more of a facilitator for my team. So when I meet with them, I meet with the trainers every other week, and then we have two departments that overlap. We have fitness and personal training, and they're basically made up of the same staff. So my counterpart, the fitness director, meets with them one week, and I meet with them at the same time the next week. But generally in our meetings, what I try to do is act as a facilitator. So if there's anything that's coming, a message that's coming from corporate, or if there's anything that they have that they bring to the forefront, something that they're concerned about, whether it's growing a small group training program that somebody's been working on, they're just hitting a wall, or whether it's, how do I stay busy during the summer, or whatever the topic is that's sort of hot that week, I really try to get a group discussion going and get all the thoughts in the room brewing instead of me just standing there as a talking head and trying to tell them how, what I think they should do, because quite frankly, all of us are smarter than one of us. So I think they appreciate that, because really what I want them to get out of it is that they are really responsible for growing their businesses. I don't need to stand behind them and chase them and prod them to grow their businesses. I want them to, generate ideas, generate solutions, figure out how to get new clients, and listen to each other about figuring out how to get new clients, and, increase their programming or increase their creativity or whatever it is that they're looking for. So in terms of leadership, I'd say I tend to be a very facilitative leader and less of a dictative leader that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And is that something you've always kind of had, or kind of intuitive for you, or is that something you've developed over time? That style?
I think it's been developed over time. I mean, I can't say that it was always there, but I would say it was always what I wanted, because, it certainly is how I enjoyed being led. And I was fortunate to have a really terrific mentor in the company very, very early on that was a very similar type of leader who would give you a general direction, but then leave it largely up to you about how you got there. And so, I guess I've tried to include that in my own leadership style, and then over the years I've had numerous courses in facilitation as well as experience facilitating groups, and certainly that's my presentation style as well, as it's fairly facilitated. I'm less of the presenter that stands up there as a talking head. I really try to get people asking questions and, generate some discussion. So I guess it is kind of a style that I've developed over the years, but it's also kind of been what I've been led by myself. So
it's great, Amanda. That's perfect. I mean, there's just so much about that, and I think I get so many questions on here from trainers all over the world, still trying to figure out leadership and styles, and I know that's something I've been working on myself probably for the past decade, and it seems to be a continual process. But it sounds like you got a good handle on it.
Well, I try.
Well, it sounds like you do. That's all. We'll go with that, huh?
All right.
Now, are you guys using technology and everything else? In our last show, we talked a lot about social media and marketing on the internet. Is that something that you and your team are directly involved in, or is that something that's done by a different department, or are you guys doing that at all right now?
Well, our marketing team actually is in charge of our Facebook page. ACAC has a Facebook page, and so the marketing department actually is in charge of it. Now, we include personal training in it quite a bit from time to time for tips, fitness tips and that sort of thing, which is more of a challenge than you would think it should be. But, it's the way I see it is it's free marketing for a trainer, and then it's sometimes like pulling teeth to try to get a trainer to give a tip, but they do use social media at ACAC quite a bit. And then the other way that I have personally used it is I have a suspension training group that I do every week, a TRX group. And when I first started the group, I was in the Squarey fitness group, the EMAX group. I don't know if you're familiar with Bob Squarey, but a few years ago I was in his group as one of the presenters and mentors there. And he gave me some really good advice, which was to start a meetup group for my TRX group. And so I created that, and that has been a really nice way to both market the TRX session itself, and then also to really keep participation high, because the other participants will see their friends RSVPing to the session and then they want to go, So that's actually been really nice, because it's made it a lot easier for me to manage as a practitioner, but it's also made it very cheap marketing for ACAC to drive people to that actual session. So that was kind of a neat idea. So that's the way I've used social media, is through that meetup group.
And that's great. And for those listening that aren't familiar, that's meetup.com, right? That's the one you're utilizing. Mm-hmm. And for people that have never done it before, can you give me a 1-minute tutorial or how to use it? Is there a cost? I've used them before myself, but how are you using it?
Yeah. Well, I want to say I think you pay like $75. It might be twice a year now. I'm trying to remember. They just send me sort of a note saying they've debited my account. So I just kind of check that off my mental checklist, but kind of done automatically unless you tell them not to. And I think they give you like a warning. They'll say, hey, we're getting ready to charge your account, and tell us if you want to dissolve this. But it's pretty simplistic to set up. They have various templates and that sort of thing, and you can import your own pictures to the site. And, mine's pretty simple. At the beginning, I tried to keep up with, putting new pictures on every other week or something, and it was just a little bit too much work for me. But to be honest, my participants don't seem to mind, and they just use it as more of an RSVP site. They'll occasionally, put some sort of a comment on there about how great the session was today or how hard their butt got kicked or whatever it is. It is kind of like the one thing that I offer that's not really medical fitness. So it's sort of fun to have that one thing. But yeah, it's pretty user-friendly, and Meetup has tutorials on the site. So it's easy to get into and, build a site rather quickly. I think I built it within a 24-hour period. So it's pretty simple if I can do it.
I know how you feel, and I've done it too, so I can tell everybody right away.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic tip. I have a ton more questions I'd like to go over, but I know we're kind of running out of time here. Thank you again for being with us today, and I'd love to try to talk you into having you back at a later show. But before we go, like I said, most of our trainers are 5 years or younger in the industry, or most of them being on the newer end. Are there any kind of keys to success that you can pass on, or tips from somebody that's been in the trenches, but also not only that, you've obviously been one of those people that's rise to the top. What advice would you give to somebody that's either just starting out or has been in the industry for 2 to 3 years?
The best piece of advice I could give them is never stop learning and take that on yourself. What I see a lot in the club business is trainers who come into a club situation where they're hired by a club, whether it's ACAC or another club, because I've seen it a lot when I've traveled as a presenter as well, and they wait and wait and wait for that club to supply them with education, and they'll take whatever the club spoon feeds them, or worse, they don't want to miss their weekend or something, or they don't want to miss a client to go to a workshop, and so they ignore the educational opportunity, or they look at, a $400 conference and they say, that's $400 that I just don't have, and if the club's not paying for it, I'm not going to go. And I would say that is absolutely suicidal. If you really want to be successful in the industry, you have to take responsibility for your education, and you're going to have to pay for it yourself. You're going to have to pony up. And every once in a while, if the club picks up part or all of the tuition for a course or a conference or something like that, that's awesome. But look at it as a bonus, and don't look at it as the only way you're going to get educated, because if you let education pass you by and you think that you can get along on a primary cert, you are dead wrong. You're going to be passed like you're standing still. So if I could encourage anybody out there that's new to the industry to do one thing, it's get educated and keep getting educated. Like, don't think you know it all, because you don't. I don't. So, if you can just never stop learning, you can actually be much more successful than if you decide, okay, well, now I'm done,
Sure. I couldn't agree with that more. And would you say it's true that as soon as you figure out that you think you know it all, that's when you're really in trouble? And the more you know, you realize the more you don't?
You're absolutely, definitely in trouble. My husband has this wonderful saying that I love, and he says there's a big difference between having 10 years experience and repeating your first year 10 times. And that's what I think a lot of, club trainers don't get, is they will take a primary cert, and then when it comes time to renew that cert, they either take the workshop for that cert over again, which used to make me crazy when I'd see that, or they'll just retake the cert. And what are you really learning when you do that? You're just settling for the lowest common denominator. So yeah, I think if you think you know it all, you're in for a big surprise.
Absolutely. Continue that education. I love it, Amanda. Well, hey, I don't want to take any more of your time. I don't want your husband to get mad at me any more than he might already be.
Nah, he's not.
Please thank him for all of us that are you've given us so much great information. I'd love to have you back at a later time. You're just a wealth of information and experience. So thank you again for being with us today.
All right, thank you, Doug.
Is there anything in parting that we're missing, or anything else that wasn't able? I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff I wanted to cover, but is there anything you want to add before we leave?
Well, can I do a little gratuitous plug for the American Society of Fitness Professionals?
Absolutely.
Am I allowed to do that? Okay. Well, it is a nonprofit, and if any of your listeners are interested in raising the quality of the fitness industry, which kind of goes back to my plug for education as well, then please go on asfptoday.org and sign up for membership. It's terribly inexpensive. I think it's maybe $30 a year right now to be, one of the new members. And we need numbers right now. We need numbers to really define our profession, because we're just so scattered out there right now as fitness professionals. And, some people think we're a bunch of muscle heads that throw iron around, and others actually think that we have some professionalism to us. And I think we're hoping that we can all band together and show the world that we are professionals. We're not just a bunch of muscle heads. So if your listeners are open and interested in being a part of our organization, we would love to have them. So it's asfptoday.org.
That's great. I'll put a link in the show notes and on the website for them to go directly to that. Thank you, Amanda.
Perfect.
And everybody, if you're out there listening, make sure you go check that out. And they can find you. We have an article at the interview you did on education, which got a great response on Fitness Professional Online. And you're all over the place. It seems like everywhere I look, I see your name as a presenter or as an authority. So thank you for all that you do. And please keep us updated on everything that's going on.
All right. Thanks, Doug. I will.
I want to thank you for being with us today on Fitness Professional Online Radio Show. And again, thank you to Amanda Harris. I really appreciate her being on there. It's people like her that are raising the bar for the fitness industry. Please take this time to go ahead and rate us on iTunes if that's where you're hearing us. We appreciate those reviews. Also, when you get a chance, please sign up for the FitnessProfessionalOnline.com newsletter. We'll give you the latest updates in the industry news, lots of changes going on. We will be having a industry directory coming up in the coming months. We're very excited. Our team's working hard on that. If you have any questions, as always, you can email us at info@fitnessprofessionalonline.com. Or give us a call and leave a message on our hotline at 805-500-6893. That's it for us. Have a great day. See you next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Fitness Professional Online Radio Show. You can share your thoughts and join the discussion on this episode by going to our website or on facebook.com/fitproonline. Let us know